Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good. In a Spring application, creation of beans and auto wiring are the most interesting topics because when I started learning Spring, I had a lot of confusion. I am making this video for those who started learning the Spring framework. After watching this video completely, I guarantee that you will not have any kind of confusion on auto wiring. So let us begin. Let me create a simple Spring Boot project. So for this I'm going to use a Spring Boot IDE which is called STS. So I'm going to file new, then from here Spring Starter project. Okay, and here I'm going to give type something, simple or sample Spring Boot project. This is just a name, okay, it can be anything. Now so I'm using Gradle. I have Java 17, and next here I am going to use the dependency is Spring Web DevTools. Okay, then next finish. All right, you can see that simple Spring Boot project is already created. Okay, so this is the codes, this is the main application. Okay, now I'm going to create a very simple controller, and here class I'm going to give the name demo controller. Okay, I want to annotate this thing with REST controller. Okay, and here I'm going to write a method. Say it is public, then string, then get message. It can be any method, any function name, and here I am returning return. It is working. All right, now I need to annotate something here so that I can invoke. Okay, here is a get mapping. What happened? Okay, here I'm giving the name of the endpoint as test. Now I'm going to start this application. So here run as Spring Boot app. You can see that the application is already started. Now how I can invoke this endpoint, this one. So I'm going to invoke this endpoint so that at least I can see this message. If I see this message, that means my controller is working. So I can come here, localhost, then test. So you can see that it is working. So if I give anything like this, any random string, and you can see that it is getting printed. Okay, so my controller is ready. Now coming to the main topic of this video, which is nothing but auto wire. Okay, and now I'm going to create a service class. Say that name of the service is some service. Okay, and finish. So this is a class. Okay, now I want an instance of this in my controller. some service. So how I'm going to get the instance of this? So most probably I'm going to write something like this: private some service. Okay, so I need the instance of some service. I want to check whether this service is really created or not. So I'm just going to print out this thing. So again it is deployed. Now refresh it. It's working. Now if I go to here and you can see that service is null. Why? Because we have not instantiated this service. And you might be thinking that we can instantiate this thing something like this. We can do it, but in Spring Framework we never do this, because any class dependency we should not create our own. The Spring Framework has to provide that dependency for us, and that is called dependency injection. Sometimes it is also called IOC, inversion of control, because we are not creating any dependency, but Spring Framework is going to provide that dependency for us. Okay, now so never do these things. Now question is, how can I tell to a Spring Framework inject this service in this controller? Okay, so for this you can do one thing, that is what AutoWhere. Now after adding this AutoWhere annotation, you will be able to see that in console that application failed to start. Okay, why it got failed? There is a reason behind it. Okay, you see this message. It says that there is no bean some service. Okay, that means that we are saying to the Spring Framework that we need a some service, but unfortunately Spring doesn't know from where to get this particular class, and that is what we say bean. We must have to tell to the Spring Framework to create a bean for these things. Okay, so if I come here, so another question, how would I register beans in a Spring context? Okay, so whenever Spring encounter this AutoWhere, it tries to look a bean of type some service in the Spring context. If it is found, then it will be injected here, and if it is not found, this kind of error will be displayed. Okay, now we have a mechanism how to inject dependency in our controller, but unfortunately we don't have any bean in the context which can be injected here. So how I can tell to the Spring Framework to register some service bean? So this can be done by many ways. Okay, one of the ways is that you can annotate service. Okay, again it is deployed, and now if I try to refresh my browser once again, initially it was printing null. This time it won't be printed null. Okay, now come to this console once again. Now you are able to see that we got the real object of some service. So what it happened? Okay, so when we annotated a class with some service, Spring thought, okay, it is a class for which it has to be, you know, a bean has to be created in the Spring context, and that is what it did. So when I applied service in the class level, Spring has created a bean for some service, and it got into the Spring context. Okay, and when we applied auto word, something like this, we are saying to the Spring context or a Spring framework, I need a some service bean. Okay, and that is what we got these things initiated. Okay, and okay, this is one way to get auto word. So how we can other way to inject, or so we annotated one class with service, it got registered in the Spring context as a bean. So what are the other ways we can register a class in the bean, in the context? So how we can do that? So another way that we can do it, we can also make repository. Okay, so if any class has this annotation, Spring will also create a bin for that. Okay, now if I come back here and if I refresh once again, you will see that it got instantiated once again. If I refresh it, okay, so for better understanding, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it same service. Okay, and I'm going to create a dummy class some repo, and I'm going to annotate these things repository. Okay, once this is encountered by Spring framework will create a bean for this one, and it will be registered in the Spring context. Okay, it will be available in the container. Now I want to auto-wire this some repo to the demo controller. How I can do that? So for this I can do the same thing, auto-wire and private some repo, and I'm going to print once again, and here repo. Okay, so now I'm going to refresh this browser once again. Now you'll be able to see that both the service and repo are injected in this controller. So both auto wiring is working good. Okay, now these are the two types whenever a Spring framework and encounter, something like service annotation and repository annotation, Spring will create a bin for that. Now the question is that how you can visualize what are the bins has been created in the Spring context. So what is the way that we can see that, we can visualize that? So there is a way for that. Okay, now for that we can use one of the dependency which is called actuator. Okay, if you go to the Spring Boot initializer and if you search for Spring Boot actuator, and if you explore it, you'll be able to see that this is the implementation class. Okay, implementation dependency, and it has to be added in the build.gradle. Okay, so I'm going to add this dependency, and I'm going to refresh this project, Gradle, refresh Gradle. So once this dependency is added in the build file, and if you come back here and if you type actuator, okay, most probably I need to restart this application. So what I can do, I can right click, then restart. Okay, so I'm coming here, and once again you can see that it got printed. Okay, now so for this, to visualize all the bins, you need to do a little bit more kind of configuration. It's not a big configuration. We need to open application.properties, and there we need to add one of the property. Here we need to add some property, and that property is this one. We are saying that expose all the endpoints for the actuator. Okay, so after that, what is going to happen, if you refresh once again, you will be able to see so many things here. One of the thing is here, if you type bins, you can see this endpoint. Click here. Okay, see this URL. Now this will give you all the bins that are registered in the Spring context. Okay, now if you try to look at our demo controller, like some service, some repo, you will be able to see that the bin is already available there. Okay, now so some service. Okay, so this is the bin. So after accessing this particular URL, if we don't get these things, then we will not be able to auto-aware that, because we don't have that particular bin in the Spring context. Anything which is available in our context, those things only can be auto-awared in our component. Okay, so far we have talked about service and repository. Okay, two things, service and some repo. There is another annotation by which we can register bin. Okay, new class, here some component. So if I annotate these things with this one, this will also create bin in the Spring context, and same, since it is going to be registered in the context. And let me check these things, whether this got already registered or not. So if I come back again to my browser and refresh it, and if I look for this one, some service, and you will be able to see this. Okay, that means it is perfectly working. We applied the component, and a bin is created, and we are able to see this bin. And whenever it is necessary, if we need a kind of dependency injection, for example, that we need an instance, or you can say that we need some service in our controller. So what we can do, we can come here and we can auto-aware that. So private some component, and here auto-aware. And after that, let me print it so that you can also check it whether this is really injected or not. Okay, now I am going to replace this. Okay, now if I go to the controller, console, you'll be able to see that components. Okay, so we have a valid instance of component here. This is only because of auto wiring is happening here. Okay, so if I remove these things, auto wire, it will not be injected. Check it. Do you see it got null? So auto wire is taking care of all the things. Okay, so I'm doing Control Z. Okay, I hope that you understood the auto wiring concept. Okay, there is another use case. For example, say that you have a class and but in different form you have not used either component or service or repository, but still we want as a bin. How we can do that? Say that I'm giving the name of the class as hello class. Say that it is a hello. Okay, I'm not going to give it hello class, but it is hello. Okay, now I want the hello should be injected in our demo controller. How we can do that? Will I be able to do that? Let me try. Okay, so that you can differentiate how it is working. Okay, auto word and private and I'm going to print it here. Let me see what it happens. Okay, most probably it will complain application failed to start. Why? Because if you see in the hello class, nothing has been told. Okay, Spring doesn't know about this hello class, and that is why we don't have any bin of this in the Spring context. I'll try to access these things once again. Localhost, then actuator, then anyway, because of that particular error, the entire things got basically the application did not start. Okay, so now if I let me go back to my controller. I'll remove other things. Okay, demo controller. Now what we are saying here, we are saying that to the Spring container we need a hello class of type hello, and if it is found, then inject it here. And unfortunately there is a no bin available in the Spring context. Okay, how we can deal this situation? Okay, so there is another way that we can deal. I think it is required, or let me see. I forgot that annotation. So another way that anyway, I'm not going to talk about that particular annotation. I forgot about that thing. So how would I create a bin of hello? So I'm going to create a config, some config, and here there is an annotation called configuration, and after that I need hello object get public hello get hello, and here what I'm going to do, new, okay, and after that what it says, public, and after that here I'm going to say it is a bin. It got restarted. Let me refresh once again. I don't know what happened here, actuator. Okay, I think okay, it is bins. Okay, here let me search for hello. Okay, do you see of type something like this? Now if you come here, this one in our controller, we are already witnessed that there is a bin. Okay, a bin name can be anything, so in our case it is get hello, so that does not make any sense. Okay, so we can give any name. Okay, for example, here we can define the bin name. Where it gone, some config, and say that it is hello bin. Okay, so let me see whether it got affected or not. Do you see hello bin? So so this can be controlled directly from in the configuration. Now the main point is auto wiring these things. Okay, so if I again refresh my endpoint URL, this one, let me see what it shows in the console. See, it got printed. So what we are doing here, basically it looks for type hello in the Spring context, and we already have seen that in browser that type is already available. That type is nothing but this one, and it got injected. Okay, so far I believe that you guys have understood the concept of auto wiring. Okay, so there are some other things also to be discussed. Okay, let me consider another use case. I'm going to close others. Say that you have an interface. Say it is where is interface and some interface. Okay, and I'm going to give I'm going to type any method here. Public, it is not needed, string get message. Okay, and I'm going to implement this interface. So I'm going to implement these things 2 times. Okay, new class some interface interface impl 1 implementation 1. Okay, and here implements some interface. Okay, I need to implement that method, add. Okay, so that's it for this implementation, and I'm going to copy the okay, I'm not going to copy, let me create another class. Okay, some interface impl 2 implements some interface. Okay, we have one interface, and for one interface we have two implementation, and I want to register both as a in a bin in the Spring context. How we can do it? And let me annotate both the implementation with component. Okay, here is a component. At the same time, for one also is a component. As we have seen that if we annotate any class with component, then repository, service, those class will be registered as bin in the Spring context. Okay, and since it is not a service, not a repository, that is why I have just given type component, so nothing is special here. Okay, now I'm going to save it. Now, okay, we have two implementation. I'm going to verify in the browser to check whether the bins are created or not. Okay, and what I should look for, let me check this. Do you see it is available? And also 2, that is also available. Okay, now I want to inject some interface to the controller. Private and I'm going to print these things and some interface. Let me save all and refresh my browser once again. Okay, so what it says some problem. Okay, field some interface in this controller required a single bin, but 2 were found. Did you understand this problem? Because we have seen in the Spring context there are 2 bins of some interface. Now Spring got confused which class has to be injected here. We don't, so in the Spring context we have 2, but we have defined something like this, and Spring is not able to decide which has to be injected. Okay, so for this purpose what we can do, we can use qualifier. And say that it is what we'll do, say that we want this one. Okay, there is another interesting point here to be discussed. Okay, let me comment out these things. Okay, so we have one interface, 2 implementation, both are annotated with component. Okay, if I give primary, Spring will consider this has to be primary bin. Okay, in case anywhere, do you see these things, some interface? Okay, IMPL1, this is the IMPL1, I made it primary. Okay, and it got injected here. So I'm not mentioning any qualifier. So this is another way that you can deal this kind of situation. Okay, and okay, say that I'm not going to use primary, but I'm going to use, say that I want something like this, and so here you can come here, and after that say that I want to inject this one, so I can copy from here and type this. Let me save it, and again it got okay, some problem. Okay, so for this, what you can do, I think I can demo controller from here, then type full qualified class name. Let me okay, again there is a problem. So let me give some interface 2 as a name, or you can say that we have given an arbitrary name here, and here you give these things. So save it. Do you see some interface? So this got injected, implementation 2, and this is implementation 2, and I have written some interface 2, and this is what I mentioned in the qualifier. And I believe that you have understood the entire concept of creation of beans and auto wiring of those beans in our class. Okay, so this demonstration is only for understanding purpose. In the real time, in the real project, we never create all those components, all those controller and configuration in the same package, but we create in different package to keep all the things organized. Okay, never do all those never create all those classes in the same package. This is only for demonstration purpose.